Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We've got a very special guest, and now, not just a guest, but we're going to welcome him as a member of our community. His wife, Dasa, has been here for quite some time. She's also a wonderful member of our community, but they're coming together. They're now going to reside here in San Diego, but this is His Grace Siddhanta Das. Let me read a little bit of bio, just a little background on Siddhanta Prabhu. Siddhanta Das first came in contact with Srila Prabhupada's teachings and ISKCON in 1970 when he worked as a film editor in Dallas, Texas. He was initiated as Srila Prabhupada's disciple in 1974 in Denver, Colorado, and served there as a Sankirtan party leader, Bhakti leader, and university and high school lecturer. In 1978, he moved to Los Angeles, California, and became the co-producer and editor for ISKCON Television, producing such classics as the Acharya series, the Ramayana, Krishna puppet shows, and the notable documentaries Coming Back, Reincarnation in America, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, and Cooking with Korma. For the past 31 years, he has been going around the world collecting oral histories from Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples about their time with His Divine Grace and the lessons they learned while in his association. This project is known as Memories, Anecdotes of a Modern-Day Saint, as seen on 87 videos totaling over 1,300 hours of Prabhupada nectar. These transcendental anecdotes have also been transcribed into 5 400-page books, which are now being translated into Russian and Spanish. And hey, I just want to give a little, personal something to say about Siddhanta Prabhu. My wife every night plays these Srila Prabhupada memories that he has so kindly put together. And when she's playing them, I get to sit in and listen in too. And she's literally, this is like her 4th round. But they are so sweet, and they really bring to light, how wonderful Srila Prabhupada is from so many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples. The memories, the insight, and just what a wonderful heart and what a wonderful saint Srila Prabhupada is, for all of us. So, please welcome Siddhanta Prabhu. Like he said, he's now a member of our new Govardhan community. We're so happy to have him. And we'll hand it over to you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I thank everyone here for inviting me, allowing me to speak. Adi Narayan Maharaj. And with the help of Mukunda Charna and Amoga Leela helped me. And Dravid is always a wonderful presence here to have his association. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Nirvishesha Shunivari Pasidadis Tarani Om Jnanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this collections of oral histories are very significant for 2 reasons that I've come to realize. And the number 1 reason is that we can learn about Prabhupada, his instructions, and also his nature, his character, his qualities. We also, if we're searching for a bona fide spiritual master, we can't take one just on the basis of their looks. You can't judge a book by its cover, they say. So similarly, generally you can't tell whether one is a bona fide spiritual master, bona fide teacher, just by their physical presence. You have to inquire from them and learn from them, not only the teachings to see if it's in line with Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, but also what kind of personality, what kind of character, what kind of qualities does this individual have? Are they qualities that I respect? Or are they qualities that are negative, that are offensive to me, that don't seem like they're saintly qualities? So through these interviews, we all, and I have found that Prabhupada is complete with all these qualities of a saint, of a Vaishnava, a pure devotee of God. And this evidence is coming direct from those that were in his presence. And this reminds me of a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. First of all, how many here are here for the first time? Few? Okay. How many here for the second time? Okay, a couple. So it behooves you to inquire, what is this philosophy? Who is giving this philosophy? And are they qualified in their knowledge of the philosophy? Does it go in line with the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, these other Vedic Sanskrit scriptures? And is this person following the teachings? Is he developing the saintly qualities? And this is described in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 18th chapter, 12th verse. And I'll read it. This is the translation. All the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? And Srila Prabhupada in the purport describes from the Bhagavad Gita 15.7 that the living entities in this conditioned world, this is Krishna speaking, are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. Srila Prabhupada then describes all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore when they revive their original Krishna consciousness, they possess all the good qualities of Krishna in a small quantity. When one engages himself in the 9 processes of devotional service, one's heart becomes purified and he immediately understands his relationship with Krishna. He then revives his original quality of Krishna consciousness. So from these personal experiences we can see evidence how Prabhupada exhibited, and it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and in this Bhagavatam. There are 26 qualities that a pure devotee has, one who is in touch with Krishna. They immediately develop these qualities, 26. And I'll just quickly read through them. He is very kind to everyone. So when we hear these, we can then understand, and this is a science, actually. This is not just a religion, some laws to follow God's teachings, but actually a science, that this is how we know that one is a pure devotee, one who is not out there to cheat me, one who has no material motivation in teaching us this philosophy. And then at the same time, this is how we can judge for ourselves. If we're making any spiritual progress, am I developing these qualities? So it goes hand in hand, that I can then see in this person, he has these qualities, so I can develop faith that this person is teaching me the truth and is qualified to teach me the truth because he has no material motivation. And at the same time, when we begin this process of Bhakti Yoga, how do I know if I'm chanting, but how do I know if I'm making any progress? Well, here is the science of how to develop realization and awareness that we are advancing. He is very kind to everyone. In other words, am I kind to everyone? When someone cuts me off in the middle of the road, and am I yelling swear words at him? No, this is a simple example of that, but this is what we need to examine within our own hearts. So the first quality of a Vaishnava is that he is very kind to everyone. Secondly, he does not make anyone his enemy. He is truthful. He is equal to everyone. No one can find any fault in him. He is magnanimous. He is mild. He is always clean. He is without possessions. He works for everyone's benefit. He is very peaceful. He is always surrendered to Krishna. He has no material desires. He is very meek. He is steady. He controls his senses. He does not eat more than required. He is not influenced by the Lord's illusory energy. He offers respect to everyone. He does not desire any respect for himself. He is very grave. He is merciful. He is friendly. He is poetic. He is expert. And he is silent. So for the next 30, 40 minutes, I think we have till 7 o'clock. Okay. So I brought along examples from the memory series that I've collected over 32 years. Stories from first-hand witnesses who had association with Srila Prabhupada that give evidence to these qualities. And we're going to focus on the first two qualities. He is very kind to everyone, and he does not make anyone his enemy. So if you want, you can take notes. Anyone who didn't come today, you can tell them these stories and these anecdotes that are from the first-hand witnesses where Prabhupada exhibited that he is a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is a devotee of God that has all of these saintly qualities. So he is very kind to everyone. So we'll have two segments. First one's about 17 minutes, 4 or 5 stories. And then we'll have the second segment, which deals with the second quality of that a Vaishnava does not make anyone his enemy. So do we have access to the lights in the house? And before we go, and I don't know if anyone's been to a movie theater before, but they always have this sign up on the screen, please turn off your cell phones. So if we could, this is a spiritual theater tonight. So if we could make sure all of our cell phones are off. And now we can watch the first segment, which deals with the quality that Prabhupada has, and we should try to develop ourselves, that he is very kind to everyone. So Tapas, can you please play video number 1? Can we turn the audio up in the house a little bit more?
We had an engagement for Prabhupada that evening at the WRUF, the radio station at the University of Florida, student run. But it was a very professional place, and Prabhupada had a particular interviewer who was trying to provoke him, trying to ruffle him, and asking questions like, so what do you bring to the world, this country, that we already haven't got? We have so many churches. What do you bring in that is so special? And Prabhupada said, I am bringing the authorized version. Authorized by who, he says. He said, by Lord Chaitanya. The man would never know who Lord Chaitanya was, but he said it so beautifully. He's authorized by Lord Chaitanya. And then he would continue with his antagonistic questions. And finally he said, so how would I recognize someone who is a follower of Krishna consciousness, like that, a very strong accent. And Prabhupada said, he would be a perfect gentleman. And so then we all realized that how beautifully and what a perfect gentleman Prabhupada had just been amidst those antagonistic type of questions. So we're all just falling in love with Prabhupada at every moment because it's impossible not to. His heart is so kind, and even kind to this man who was trying to provoke him. So
we're at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in 1973. And I'm in Prabhupada's room, his darshan room, which is upstairs. It's a beautiful big room, large room, and it's packed. And today, so far as I can remember, it's full of people from different religious denominations. At that time, Shyam Sundar had been inviting different people to come in and meet with Prabhupada. And today it was the interfaith almost, so leaders of different spiritual denominations, religious denominations had come to see who is this person, who is this Swami, the leader of this Hare Krishna group. So it was full of devotees and all these people. And Prabhupada was speaking away, explaining Krishna consciousness. And I'm standing somehow or other just next to Prabhupada, possibly because there's nowhere else to sit. And I've moved to the only place left, and it happens to be just behind Prabhupada. Now, the door slowly opens, and in walks a little 5-year-old boy, Premananda, who happens to be my stepson. I've recently married, and so he's my little stepson. And little Premananda happens to be dressed from head to toe in a sannyasi outfit, with a little danda. And I think, what's his mother doing? What is she thinking about? And Prabhupada stops speaking and looks over, and his face turns into a smile from ear to ear. He says, Maharaj, like this, and his eyes open wide like this. He says, welcome, come. So little Premananda, somehow or other, he starts to clamber over all the people sitting in the room. He's just literally climbing over people to come forward to sit before Srila Prabhupada, who's at his table, and Prabhupada's just beaming at him, as though here comes the sannyasi from his travels, he's returned. And so he sits before Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's just smiling and addressing him, Maharaj. What is your name? Premananda. Premananda Maharaj. He says, take. And he offers him a sweet from there's a tray of sweet balls on the table. And so Premananda, he's sitting there, he puts one, and Prabhupada's just enjoying watching him eating the sweet and the sannyasi with the danda. I think he took another one, a second one as well, and Prabhupada's just enjoying seeing Premananda. And then he continues to address. Now the first thing I remember about all this is that when Prabhupada saw Premananda, his whole countenance changed. He was serious and stern one moment, and when Premananda walked into the room, Prabhupada almost became as a child, as Premananda. It was like two children in the moment. I could literally see a change. Prabhupada transformed into a child and then again transformed into the spiritual master and continued explaining to his audience about Krishna consciousness.
So one time in Vrindavan was the time of the mosquitoes. So we all got alert, and we all was told to be very careful, the servants in Prabhupada's quarter, to close perfectly the doors, so we don't want mosquitoes attack Srila Prabhupada. So one time, I will be so careful. So one time, I am coming. So for those who know Srila Prabhupada quarters, many of you, I am coming from his little kitchen by the garden and enter. So on the left there is Srila Prabhupada room, and on the right and straight you can go in his darshan room. So I am coming. So I am a little after Prabhupada sleeping room, and there come out on my right Arisori. So Arisori blocked me to go, and he started to scream at me. What are you doing? You never close Prabhupada's door. You want Prabhupada to be attacked by the mosquitoes like this. And I was so careful to close the door. So I'm like this, you know, and you go like this, and you are stupid, you know, and scream and scream. So I'm like this. I'm trying to tell him, yes, yes, I promise you, I did close the door. Okay. So, suddenly, I feel such a strong, I don't know what to say in English, poignet, hand, such a strong like this, not on my sari, on my hip. One hand is catching my hip, but so strong, and pull me like this. And who is that? Srila Prabhupada. And he come in front of me like this, he put me behind him, and he went to Arisori. So what now? Why are you speaking to her like this? What is this? You should not speak like this to her. And Srila Prabhupada started to defend me like this. And he got so angry. So, the first thing is that Prabhupada touched me. And he defended me. And he always defend the poor, the one who are, you know, women are nothing much. Like that. Oh, that was the unbelievable day, what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada had such a strong strength. You cannot imagine. Such strength.
While I was staying at John Lennon's estate in the servants' quarters, along with Srila Prabhupada in a different section, we were all told that the bricklayer that was on hire by John Lennon had experienced ghosts. He confided in his wife, who confided, so-called, with other female devotees, that he was hearing sounds that sounded like a body was being dragged across the floor above where he was living in chains. But he didn't want others to know about this. But somehow it did get back to Prabhupada that was happening. And the bricklayer was concerned that because he had heard these sounds that kept him awake at night, that he wouldn't be able to continue with his work of bricklaying for John Lennon. So it was becoming a very dangerous and critical situation. When Prabhupada heard about what was going on, he said that the devotee should go into the bricklayer's apartment when he wasn't there, have a roaring kirtan with blowing of conch shells, and a very loud kirtan that went on for at least 4 hours, and that this would drive away the ghosts. What happened, we learned the next day, was that the bricklayer the following night didn't hear the sounds of what he thought were ghosts in the rooftop, and was able to get a good night's sleep and can carry on with his work. And so this story has a very happy ending. It's a true story, by the way, of an exorcism that was done by the Holy Name at the behest of a pure devotee, and it saved a person's livelihood and life.
Well, Srila Prabhupada was, to our apparent limited vision, his health was deteriorating, and he requested that I come to India, to Vrindavan, to see him. So I just got married, and my wife was pregnant with my first son. So I couldn't leave, and we were living in a very remote part of Hawaii. So I couldn't leave at that particular moment. But I promised that as soon as my wife had her baby, then I would come. So time passed after my son arrived, and Shudakirti came over to Maui from Oahu, and we flew off to India together. So at that time I wasn't living at a temple, so I let my hair grow a little bit longer than I should have. And when we arrived in Delhi, I thought, well, I can't go to see Srila Prabhupada like that, so we shaved up. And I had this big long sika. And Srila Prabhupada, when I walked in the room, it was a very, sober mood, and dark, and everything was, subdued, and people were kind of morose, not making too much sound and everything. So I walked into Srila Prabhupada's room, and they said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, Madhavisa has arrived. So Prabhupada sat up in his bed, and I paid my obeisances, and Prabhupada, first thing he said, whoa, look at Madhavisa. He is maintaining such a nice sika. And he chuckled like that, knowing that, I hadn't maintained such a nice sika. I just had shaved up in Delhi train station. And the second thing he said, where is your wife? See, I had left Srila Prabhupada, I was a sannyasi, and then I had left and got married and everything like that. So that's not particularly the way you should do it. But Srila Prabhupada, he just shrugged that off. It was like immaterial to him. He wanted to know where my wife was. Not that, why have you got married? Why have you done this? He wanted to know, where is she? And he was fully aware that I was married and I had a child and everything like that, and he wanted to see her. And I said, well, Srila Prabhupada, she just had her first baby and she really doesn't want to travel. And she said, that's right, she shouldn't travel. But she is feeling okay? And I said, yes, she's feeling good. And you had a son? And I said, yes, Prabhupada, I had a son. And I said, and I named him Abhay Charan. Is that all right? And he said, yes. He said, that is okay. You've named him after your spiritual master. And then he went on to explain the famous purport that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the elephant and the crocodile. That the elephant is very mighty and very strong, but when he enters into the water, he becomes victimized by the crocodile because he's not in his proper atmosphere. If he's on the dry land, he can annihilate, he can crush the crocodile. But because he's in the water, he's at the mercy of the crocodile. So he said, similarly, we may be situated in the wrong atmosphere for executing Krishna consciousness. We must put ourselves in the right atmosphere, and then we can execute our Krishna consciousness and with all strength and vigor. So he said, it doesn't make any difference. You are a sannyasi, now you're a householder. That doesn't make any difference. The proper thing is just to go on with your Krishna consciousness, execute it. If you can't execute it, if you're becoming weak by artificially embracing a sannyas order, and you must take another order to become strong again, that is all right. But the most important thing is don't leave the association of the devotees, and continue on with your Krishna consciousness. And he made me feel so good, and it was very enlivening and personal to be with Srila Prabhupada in those last days.
So maybe we can hit the lights just for 1 minute. Do we have
So
a...
then on the initiation day,
okay,
Radhashtami,
stop, Tapas. Tapas, stop.
before that for about 2 weeks,
Stop. Okay, thank you. So the next one I'm going to go to, Tapas, is this quality number 2. But just to reflect, so we can take advantage of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, which means hearing, chanting, and remembering. Do we have a wireless mic, a handheld mic we could pass around if need be? If anybody has a reflection, maybe a story that one of the 5 stories that was meaningful to you, something that stood out, was hit your heart, that you could share again and to reinforce with us, with one another. Anybody like to share something that stood out for you? Do you remember one story? Who remembers one of the stories? You get a door prize. Guru.
I remember a story by Srila Prabhupada ex-wife, who was being chastised by Harisari. Harisari has admitted to having a little bit of a temper. He was a very enthusiastic temple commander and servant of Srila Prabhupada. One time he got in so much trouble, he was yelling at one life member, or some Indian gentleman there in Vrindavan. Prabhupada sent him to go find that man and pay your obeisances, and he went all over Vrindavan looking for this man. Exhausted, he came back, and there's this man in Prabhupada's room talking to him. Anyway, Harisari Prabhu, one of my good friends. Her story about defending the devotees is there are many stories like that. And there's a lot of misconceptions about the worthiness of the women members of the Krishna consciousness movement. They were very undervalued and underappreciated. And so Srila Prabhupada would come, step up and defend his disciples. So it's a wonderful,
very good,
a wonderful pastime or account of Srila Prabhupada doing just that.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for that memory again. So again, the quality that we focused on right there was he is very kind to everyone. And he was kind to a woman, he was kind to a 5-year-old child, he was kind to somebody he didn't even know who was working, wasn't even working for the devotees, but he solved the problem of the ghosts and solved that issue. Kind to a fallen sannyasi. They call it, what is in Sanskrit, when a sannyasi leaves his ashram, they call it vantashi. It's such a degraded, horrible situation to fall down. It's compared to eating one's own vomit. But Prabhupada did not criticize or chastise Madhavisa. He was kind to him. So in all circumstances, we're giving an example, or give an example here, how Prabhupada fits that quality of a Vaishnava perfectly. And there are hundreds more. I have over 5,000 stories like this. It'll take you close to a year to watch all the videos. But so it was a little difficult to select just 5 for this short period here that gives examples that Prabhupada was very kind to everyone. So let's go on to the next series of videos, and then in 20-25 minutes there'll be a feast, I understand, afterwards. Is that the program for tonight? Kirtan and then the feast, okay. So the second quality, just as a reminder, is he does not make anyone his enemy. Here are 4 or 5 examples in Prabhupada's life as exhibited by, or told by his disciples who had direct first-hand knowledge of this occurrence in this example. He does not make anyone his enemy. So if we can hit the lights. And tapas, quality number 2, please. Are you still there, tapas? I think he's in Hong Kong, so I hope he's still awake. Singapore, sorry. Tapas, Haribo, Jeep Jago. I don't know if I can play it from here. And there is some lag in the audio. You notice that it was a little out of sync. And that's just something that we need to work out. But thanks for tolerating that and listening to the story. It's not hearing, which might be good. It is, he does not make anyone his enemy. So I don't know, I'll try to play it from here, but I think he has control over this.
Sorry, I'm doing it. Sorry for the late. I'm doing it now.
Okay. Oh, he's working on it, okay. I guess patience is another good quality we should try to develop. He was good at that, I'm not so good at that, so I have some ways to go.
So can you accept it again, the connection? I lost the remote connection actually. On your laptop.
What do you accept? Here he goes. Thank you, Tapas. Heart Tapas.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Hite Namani.
In June '68, we had gone to a high school engagement in a Christian school. It was a school for girls, and there were many nuns in the school. And this program was arranged by a French-Canadian devotee called Janardhan Prabhu. He was doing his PhD at that time. So Prabhupada gave the lecture, and as usual after Prabhupada's lecture he would say, "Any questions?" The same Mr. Mukherjee, who had told me that Prabhupada was a different type of saint, got up from his chair and started attacking Prabhupada. He started saying, "Why do you have to come and preach this philosophy in these Christian countries? They have their own philosophy. You don't need to do this." Devotees were very upset in the way he was being attacked. Prabhupada was not being criticized by the Christian nuns. He was being criticized by one of the people who came in his entourage. So the devotees were very upset, and Prabhupada was very cool. In August, Prabhupada was leaving Montreal to go to America. And he told me, "Gopal, go and call that Mr. Mukherjee." I said, "Prabhupada, he insulted you so badly. Why do you want to see him?" And Prabhupada said, "I must have done something to him in my last life for which he took revenge." So I called this gentleman, and Prabhupada blessed him before leaving. So from this we can see how magnanimous and merciful Prabhupada was. And even though this man had humiliated Prabhupada, he really attacked Prabhupada very badly. Prabhupada tolerated it did not utter one word, and in fact he blessed him before leaving. So I think from this example we should draw inspiration and not retaliate the moment somebody criticizes us. We have to learn to practice Siddhanta Pisanichena.
So we were flying from Mauritius to Durban, and it was a Qantas airline that was coming from Perth, Australia, and there was some type of a rugby match that had taken place with the South African and New Zealand teams at that time, and there were a lot of rugby types on the plane, and we had a seat in the non-smoking section, and I was seated beside Srila Prabhupada, and there I was with my little British hat and shirt and coat and pants, and people were smoking in the non-smoking section, and of course I was disturbed by it because I didn't like it, but I was also concerned for Srila Prabhupada's welfare, and so I asked one of the stewardesses, could you please ask them to not smoke? This is a no smoking section. So she informed the rugby type guys who were drinking quite a bit as well to stop smoking, and of course they didn't stop smoking. So I again went to inform the stewardess, can you please ask them again? And Prabhupada stopped me. He said, what is the difference between us and them if we can't tolerate these sort of things? He said, don't be an ordinary, common, foolish man.
And then Prabhupada came again in 1976, and by that time we had a few more devotees. There was this, many things happened, but there was this one time when it was summertime. Actually, Prabhupada was there for Lord Balaram's appearance day, and around that time, and it was very hot in Iran, and it was also very. All the flowers were blooming, and it was a very nice atmosphere. Hare Krishna. And so Prabhupada at one point, he called it Bhuswarga, heaven on earth. And he liked it very much. And one night, he would go out on the balcony, and he would sit, and the devotees would sit out with him, or when we had guests, the guests would sit with him. And one night he was out there, and in Iran, it's a Muslim country, it's a Shiite country, so they have what's called namaz, which is prayers, a call to prayer 3 times a day, actually at Gayatri times. So, but they have over the loudspeakers a kind of a chant that's calling everybody to prayer. It's very beautiful. And so Prabhupada was sitting on the balcony, and this namaz was going on. And he listened to it, and then he turned to Atreya and he asked, what is this? And Prabhupada says, this is namaz, and it's the Muslim call to pray to God. And they're saying the names of God, Bismillah, Rahman, Rahim, different, in the name of God, who's the most merciful, most compassionate, things like that. And so Prabhupada said, that's very good, are calling everyone to prayer. And Atreya said, but Prabhupada, isn't it better that that we pray in the names of Krishna rather than Allah? And Prabhupada turned to him and he said, you're asking me to be sectarian.
In December of 1976, Prabhupada traveled from Hyderabad to Wardha, which is 2 hours southwest of Nagpur in central India. And Mohandas Karamchand Mahatma Gandhi had his ashram there called Sevashram. Giriraj Maharaj, at the time Brahmachari, had made friends with Ramakrishna Bajaj, whose father, Jamnalal Bajaj, was a big supporter of Gandhi, and who had given this house in this place. It was a business family. So they're a wealthy business family. There was an Acharya's conference called by a surviving associate of Gandhi who was very famous all over India, Vinoba Bhave, who lived there. He was in his 80s at the time. Prabhupada was 80, 81, 80. And Swami Chidananda of the Divine Life, Swami Shivananda's Divine Life Society, was also there. During that 2-day program, Prabhupada went on a morning walk with his disciples, and there were like 25, 30 devotees. It was a good group for the middle of India at that time. Jayapataka Maharaj was there, Giriraj, lots of others. Anyway, as we started walking, I said, Srila Prabhupada, Mahatma Gandhi. And before I could say anything else, he cut me off. Do not criticize Gandhi here. This is his place. They won't understand. And then he changed the subject and, we didn't talk. So the lesson was that, you should be careful what you say depending on where you are. I mean, I could philosophize on that because, for example, in the Western world, Prabhupada used to say Jesus is our guru or Muhammad is our guru. But in Vrindavan, we asked Prabhupada, is it better to worship the demigods or the one God of the Western religions? He said it's better to worship the demigods because by following the Vedic system, you get gradual elevation. And then he said these religions, the Western religions, are the religions of the meat eaters. In a denigrating way, he said this. So for time and circumstance, we have quotations of Gandhi on every Bhagavad Gita. And Gandhi did read the Gita every day. Saying that he was an atheist, it's more accurate to say he was a Mayavadi who didn't believe that Ram and Krishna were incarnations of God. But he believed in a higher power. So Prabhupada did call him Duratma Gandhi at times. He criticized. But at that particular moment, he could not criticize. And we were not to criticize. And it was the wrong venue for criticism.
We went to one engagement, and I can't recall exactly where it was, but it was a big, huge feast that this lady had prepared for us. And there were onions all throughout the vegetables. And it was delicious. It was vegetarian, but there was onions. So one of the devotees, I think it was one of the men, I can't remember which one, leaned over to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, there's onions in the vegetables. He whispers it. Prabhupada looked at him like he was, his eyes were on fire. He was so angry. He said, quiet, eat. He didn't want to offend her. He was very sweet. He said, it doesn't matter, just eat. And then another time, they were serving us chocolate, and we all thought, oh, you're not supposed to eat chocolate because it's got caffeine in it. And Prabhupada said, eat it. He was like he said, just eat it. You can have ice cream, it doesn't matter. So he was casual in some ways and strict in other ways, but I think that his principle was he didn't want to offend our hosts more than being a stickler for the rules and regulations. And that was more of a concern to him, I think, than the fact that there was onions in the vegetables. He didn't care. And he ate it and complimented her on her cooking. So it was a great example.
Well, Srila Prabhupada told us that late Prasad Thakur, who was the brother of his spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it became strained at a certain time. They parted ways. Otherwise, for a while they were together. So Srila Prabhupada made a courtesy call to see him. I had been sent to go there ahead of time to find out the situation with Bhaktivedanta Thakur's birthplace, because he was living in a place called Dasa Mandira at Birnagar. And this is called Dwadas Mandir because there's 12 like Shiva temples, all very little, small, beautiful little temples lined up in a row. And that means where you get the Dwadasa Mandir. And Bhaktivedanta Thakur spent a good section of his childhood there. There's a tree under which, mango tree under which he was seated. And it's a very beautiful place. And so we went to see, so I had initially talked with Lalit Prasad Thakur, and he was agreeable that ISKCON could do something. So then Prabhupada went there and discussed it with him. And it looked like they were going to give us, he had a big, I don't know exactly what the acreage is. Maybe it's like 25 acres of land, and maybe they would give us about half of it, where we could have a temple and do something for Bhaktivedanta Thakur's birthplace, which was on the side of a little pukur, a little water reservoir. And but the actual birthplace was a small little temple, which the door was broken off and it was in ill repair. And Prabhupada was practically crying when he saw that. So initially it seemed that things were working out. And then Prabhupada went a second time to kind of finalize everything. And Lalit Thakur, he's a very pure soul. He was like 97 years old at that time, if not 98. I think he lived to be 101, 102. And he would chant all the day. He would just be chanting nonstop. There were deities upstairs on the second floor, and he had a library of all kinds of Bhaktivedanta Thakur books. And he had some disciples. It seemed one of his more intimate disciples was a very elderly lady, maybe in her 60s or 70s, who was called Bhakti Ma. And it was very impressive to see someone from a whole other era, like a century ago, you know. And he explained his own history that he was a lifelong brahmachari, never married. He was working for the government till he was maybe in his 50s. As I forget what was the employment, something more like a clerical, white-collar thing with the government. And then he retired. And so now but even throughout his life he was doing sadhana bhakti. So it was nice to know that Bhaktivedanta Thakur had more than one child that was an active. And he actually had a lot of disciples. He was doing the Namhata preaching in Bangladesh and different parts of Bengal. But it was in a particular area. There was some disciple called Sachinanda, I think, who was actively preaching in the villages. This was kind of the backdrop. And then he was sitting in this little room on his bed, and he didn't move at this age. He didn't move much. Even he was bathed in his bed. I think he went to the bathroom in his bed. And they would brag that even though he would go to the toilet there, it smelled like roses, which is is not the normal.
You experienced that?
I experienced that smell. There was no bad smell in the room. I can't say firsthand, you know, but of course, with every person like that, they're surrounded by different people, and I think that his initial inclination was, as he had agreed with Prabhupada to do something jointly, but some of his followers had insisted that shouldn't give it. That's the impression I got. And the second time when Prabhupada went there, we were driving on the way to Calcutta and or Mayapur. It's about an hour drive from Mayapur. Then Prabhupada was given a seat and he was discussing about developing the birthplace of Bhaktivedanta Thakur. But this time there was a different mood, and it was indicated that they weren't agreeable now to giving a portion or to have an agreement with ISKCON. And it was obviously they didn't have the capacity. They do some village preaching. They were enthusiastic in his presence to do some things, but it wasn't. They didn't have the capacity or the wherewithal to actually develop the birthplace of Bhaktivedanta Thakur. So the Prabhupada became very impatient. He became very upset that Bhaktivedanta Thakur was so great that he deserves to have really such a wonderful facility, a wonderful monument for his greatness. And Prabhupada had talked about a library, a display, an exhibition, an ashram, a preaching facility, and fixed up his birthplace temple. But everything was being canceled with no reason given. Okay, if they could do it was one thing. So then Prabhupada, he suddenly became very intense in a very loud voice. He was saying, isn't it sinful? Isn't it sinful if somebody can develop the birthplace of Bhaktivedanta Thakur, but you're not allowing? Or was it the opposite? He said, isn't it sinful that you cannot do it? That somebody cannot develop, that if somebody cannot develop the birthplace of Bhaktivedanta Thakur and they won't let anyone else who could develop do it, then isn't that sinful? I think that was quite a few years now. Because it was, so the question was, they had it, but they couldn't do it. We could do it, but they didn't want to let us. So then nothing's going to happen. It's going to stay status quo. It's going to stay in an undeveloped state. Bhaktivedanta Thakur, still to this day, is worse run down than what it was then. And Prabhupada repeated this about 4 or 5 times, very loudly, almost, I wouldn't say shouting, but I would say just maybe one level below that. Very intensely, loudly declaring, asking us a question. And then nobody said anything. Then he walked out. As he went out, then he turned and there was a few of us, secretaries and assistants. Then he said, because I asked as a question, it was not an offense. I mean, he was talking to someone, his brother, god brother, or something, of his own spiritual master. But he was put in a situation where Bhaktivedanta Thakur, in his point of view, was being offended. And therefore, he thought he had a right, he expressed he had a right to question it, and by questioning it, it wasn't an offense. If he had accused, like, you're a nonsense, you didn't get, whatever, something like that, would have been maybe offensive. But because he questioned, isn't it offensive? Isn't it offensive? Isn't it sinful? So that was an interesting understanding about how somebody can inquire, even if it's very intensively, but it's not technically an offense.
So, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Maybe we could hit the lights just one more time? Okay, thank you. So thank you for listening, for watching. Real quickly, anybody have a question or a comment about this series, about any of the topics that we covered today, about the qualities of a Vaishnava? That last one, he does not make anyone his enemy. Because even though it was intense, and he was asking a question, isn't it sinful? Still, he did not make him his enemy, because he was posing it as a question. So these are learning lessons that we can also come away with, how to deal with each other or a supposed adversary.
Siddhanta Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I really liked what Kaushalya had conveyed, that in a situation where someone's offering their love and devotion, Prabhupada overlooked the small details to be able to reciprocate that love. So I think that's very significant, that we need to be considerate of, following Prabhupada's example. So I really like that.
Right. He also mentioned how when they were building, was it Mayapur or Vrindavan, where Prabhupada said you can make them you can have them make tea in their room, but tea for the devotee, one who is following strictly, that's prohibitive because it's got some addictive qualities to it. But because Prabhupada wanted to preach, he was allowing that facility could be there for the guests. So that is according to time, place, and circumstance, and the vision of a pure devotee, how to be strict and not be strict. So these are the qualities of a Vaishnava, and the qualities that we can see in Prabhupada and have faith that we're following a bona fide spiritual master. Now I do have a little self-promotion, shameless promotion. I brought 2 volumes of my books. These stories are translated and transcribed into book form, and I've got volume 4 and 5 here with me at 50% off today, $10 only each. So on the way out, if you want, don't leave the temple without one. So without any further ado, thank you for coming and listening to these stories. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Thank you for coming. We have a